Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. I am here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories I like to bring to you. I am over on TikTok. If you'd like to look over there, I think it's Jess Rose 5472, I believe. Or like I say, I'm here live on a Tuesday and Thursday. Or you can see this is a pre-recorded one, so these get put up on the week at the weekend. So if you want to join me on any of those, that'd be great. Or if you'd like comment and subscribe, that'd be great too. I've got Patreon, patreon.com/JessRose5472. Now I've got all of that out of the way. We can start the story, because even if you don't want to do any of that and you just want to watch, I appreciate that just as much. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's begin. Right, awful story this evening. Don't know if you know this one. It is awful, absolutely terrible. I've said awful probably about 4 times, but it genuinely is. I'd originally saw this case back in, I think it was 2013. And it's as horrific now as when I first heard it. It genuinely is. I happened to see a documentary a couple of weeks ago on Netflix, and I believe it's called Delhi Crime, and it's loosely based on this case. And when I say loosely, I mean loosely. It doesn't. If you do want to watch it, it doesn't do a recreation of the crime I'm going to talk about tonight by any means. It's done from the point of view of the authorities involved in the case. But when I say loosely, it genuinely is loosely. So, I mean, it's on there now if you want to have a look. But no, the documentary I actually watched originally relating to this case is called India's Daughter. Now, I do believe it still is banned in India, because there were some interviews in the documentary done with a couple of people in it that the authorities said shouldn't have been interviewed, basically. Don't know if that's the reason, but like I say, the documentary is online, but it's not as easy to view as it used to be. I've heard that is because India's involved in trying to keep it offline as well. Now I'm going to tell you the story. Might shed a bit more light on why it's trying to be brushed under the carpet, let's say, and I don't think it should be. So, okay, as the title said, India's Daughter, the harrowing Jyoti Singh story. Okay, now I have seen her name pronounced a few ways, but after watching the documentary and watching how her mum pronounced the name, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly now. Now, Jyoti Singh, she was born in 1989. She was the eldest of 3. I believe she had 2 younger brothers. Her mum, Asha Devi, her dad, I have got her dad's name and I haven't written it down here. But her dad, let me tell you a little bit about her dad. Her dad seemed just an amazing man. Her mum as well. Look, just lovely parents. They're from a small village just outside the city of Delhi. Okay. And what it is Jyoti's dad, he really would have loved to become a teacher. That was his ambition as he was growing up. And given the fact he was quite a not poor as such, but quite a modest family. He couldn't afford to go. He couldn't afford to go to, a private school or go on to college or anything. And he always promised himself that he would try his best to be able to ensure that his kids do get the very best in education. And he worked 2 jobs in order to ensure that. Now, when Jyoti was born in India, I have watched a few documentaries. Now, in the big cities or in richer families, let's say, I think having a girl wouldn't be as devastating. Now, that might sound a little bit far-fetched, saying it's devastating to have a little girl. The reason I'm saying that is in the poorer towns in India. And when I say poor, I mean poor. I mean shack, homeless poor. I mean poor communities, okay? Having a little girl isn't it's not ideal, let's say, for in the nicest possible way, because girls cost more money. In these villages, they don't go to work. The father also has to pay when they get married in the future. They just don't basically see a lot of use for having a little girl. And that sounds quite brutal, but the documentaries I've watched from the villagers' mouths themselves are a lot worse. They say a lot worse about having little girls. Okay. Within a documentary I watched, there was a particular village where I think 99% of the children are male. And you might be like, oh, wow, how can you have that many males? Because the little girls, they don't have, the women don't have the option to, I don't know whether I can say the word, but what do they call it now? They call it women's healthcare. Okay, let's just say that, because that's the term that gets used now for what I'm talking about. They don't have the option for that. So they get rid of the little girls once they're born. Okay. And there was a woman I was watching she'd had a daughter. She was made to get rid of her daughter by putting sand in the baby's mouth to choke her. That was her first daughter. Her second daughter, she didn't want to do that too, so her mother-in-law and sister-in-law took the baby off and killed her the same way. And her third daughter, who she refused outright to allow anyone to hurt, she wasn't going to allow it to happen again. She ended up being kicked out of the village with this little girl. So, this is sort of the mentality, if you like, of these small villages, very poor villages, where girls are they're just not seen as being any use whatsoever. Okay. It sounds shocking. To us, it sounds shocking. To the residents of these small villages, it's just life. It's just life. It's just how it is. And if it means being able to live and feed the children you've got, the male children you've got, and there's a chance of them going on to work and also provide money coming into the family, that's who they're going with. They're going with the boys. They're not going to invest in having girls. And it's so sad. And due to YouTube, I'm having to be very careful how I'm wording things. So I hope I'm making sense. But yes, the very, very, really, really sad documentaries that I've watched. It just unheard of to how we live here. But you can't we can judge it on how we're living, but to them, this is perfectly normal. It's a perfectly normal life, okay? So saying that, when Jyoti was born, her parents handed out sweets to the neighbouring to the neighbours within the village they lived in. And some of the neighbours were like, why are you so happy you've had a girl? And Jyothi's parents were happy. They were so happy they've had a little girl. They didn't care what Jyoti was, whether she was a girl or a boy. They were just grateful they've got this beautiful, healthy child. So they were unusual within their village. Now, I'm not saying it's the same village I was just talking about, but you know, it was still unheard of to be so happy about having a little girl. So Jyothi's dad, he wanted her to have the best education he could possibly afford for her. So like I say, he worked 2 jobs. He wanted her to go to private school, plus her 2 younger siblings. Like I say, I believe they're brothers, her brothers. And he just worked his socks off to get her there. Now, Jyoti herself loved learning. She, you know, she knew where she wanted her life to go. She knew she wanted to, you know, go into the medical field. She knew what she wanted. This is where her life was going. Okay, but college is very expensive. So once she got older, she came to her parents again and she asked them had they put money aside for her wedding. And of course they had. And she says, can that money be used for my further education so I can go to college? And bless her parents, they agreed. They agreed. And like I say, the reason I explained that bit at the beginning was just so you can understand how much they invested in her, how much they knew she was just meant for greatness. This girl was, and you know, her parents. I mean, Jyothi's mom, Asha. You know, she looked after the home. She was a housewife, but with regards, and obviously with her dad working, but in the home, she encouraged Jyoti. She wasn't sort of, you know, you've got to cook and clean and everything else. There was none of that. They really invested in their children, and I just thought it should have been a really lovely story of this family. Really should have been. Okay. So while in college, now Jyothi's 23. Okay. She worked as an intern in a hospital. She also got a job in a call center, you know, to earn money herself, to be able to get things that she needed. You know, she really was. It was said that this girl only used to sleep 4 hours a night between going to college and then going to work and then coming home. She'd go to sleep 4 hours. She'd be back out again in the morning. You know, her work ethic was just amazing. It really was. And, you know, it showed from her dad's work ethic. And, you know, I can't emphasize enough just what this girl was meant to do in the world. Okay. Now, we have a lad called Awindra Pratap Pandey. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things been mentioned about Awindra. It said that he was her boyfriend. And in other things that I've seen, it says that he was her friend. All right. Now, I'm going to say he was her friend. All right. That's what her parents call him. And that's what I'm going to call him. Because we don't know if they were in a relationship in any way, shape or form. We don't know. Okay. I've heard she did have boyfriends. I've heard she didn't. And I'm not going to comment on that because I genuinely don't know. So I'm going to just say Awindra was Jyothi's friend. Okay. Now, He was a software developer around the same age, okay? Now, all I'm going to run through as well, just very, very quickly here. In India, they kind of work on a caste system, all right? Now, if I, it's the Hindu caste system, all right? You have the Brahmins, which are the priestly or academic class. You have the Kshatriyas, which are the king/rulers, administrators, warriors class. All right. You have the Vaishyas. Oh, no, I'm not pronouncing it right. But these are the artisans, the tradesmen, farmers, merchants. Okay. You have the Shudras, which are manual labourers, farm workers, servants. And then you have the Dalits, which are the street cleaners, menial tasks. These are, sometimes you don't even see the Dalits, if I'm pronouncing that right, on the caste list when you look, because they're outcasts. They're actually classed as outcasts. They call them the untouchables. Now, to us, untouchables would seem like high in any sort of hierarchy. No, within this caste system, they are at the bottom. All right. The reason I'm saying that is Awindra was a top caste. He was a Brahmin. Okay. He was very, very well off. He was a software developer. His family were very well off. So he was at the top. I believe Jyotis were in the middle. They were the Vaishyas, so artisan, tradesmen, farmers, merchants. So I believe that's the level that Jyotis was at. So I don't know if that's why they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't know, because I know the caste system it's very, very adhered to in India, I believe. So I don't know if that's got anything to do with it whatsoever. I'm not saying it has. I'm just saying it. A point was made that he was top of the caste system. All right. So we get to the 16th of December 2012. All right. And Awindra and Jyoti, they meet up in Delhi, okay, to go to the cinema, and they want to go and see Life of Pi. Don't know if you've seen it. I have. A very, very good film, and she'd wanted to see it for quite a while. He's like, come on then, we'll go. So they get out of there about 10 to 9 on the evening. Now, of course, it's dark. You know, it's December. Of course, it's dark. So when they leave the cinema, they try and get a tuk-tuk. I believe it's like, it's equivalent of our taxis, I suppose, but it's open. Okay. They get a tuk-tuk just into the main city centre, onto the main road. But that's where he leaves them. He doesn't want to take them all the way home. He says you can get a bus. They're like, what are you talking about? They have to get out the tuk-tuk, and now they're looking around for a bus. Okay. So we're just going to come away from Jyoti and Awindra just for a second. All right. And we're going to introduce I'm going to introduce 6 names to you now. All right. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of names at you at the minute, but these 6, you're gonna know them again. You're gonna know, not again, but you're gonna know these names in a second. All right. So we have Akshay Thakur, who is 28, and he's a bus cleaner. Okay. We have Pawan Gupta, 19, who's a fruit seller. We have Vinay Sharma, 20, who's a gym instructor. We have Mukesh Singh and Ram Singh, who are brothers. Mukesh is 26, Ram is 30. Okay. Now, Ram is sort of the ringleader of this group, let's say. Got a very, very, very bad temper. Very bad tempered is Ram. Now, he drives a charter school bus, like a private school bus. This is what he does for a living, okay? Now, just recently, there's a young lad called Mohammed Afroz, who's 17. Now, he recently had began working with Ram Singh. Just when I say working with, kind of just following him around for the most part is the gist I'm getting of it. So they're the 6 people that I wanted to. Oh God, I know what's coming. I know what's coming. So my brain, I've got a bit of a brain block then, but yes. So they're the 6 names I wanted to bring to you. All right. So also the 16th of December 2012. So the same night that Awindra and Jyoti have gone to the cinema. Okay, don't forget they've come out of the cinema and they're waiting for a bus. All right, they're looking around for a bus to bring them home. Okay. Now, these 6 on this particular night, well, they were drinking, they were eating, they were partying. Let's say these 6 are. But they start to get quite bored. They start to become quite bored. They don't know what to do with themselves. Now, within that caste system that I was discussing with you, these 6 come under the Dalit caste, so the bottom, hence outcasts. Okay, that's what I believe these 6 all come under. All right, so they don't have a lot of money. I've seen where I think all of them live for the most part during the documentary, and yeah, it's what would you call what do you call oh, they're called, there's a word I'm looking for that particular area, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's oh goodness sake, I've had a complete brain block. But a very poor area. Okay, if it comes to me, I'll tell you the word I was thinking of. But they all come from this very poor area, okay? So they're sat down and they're discussing how to come up with some easy money. That's what they're after. So Ram came up with the idea of taking out the school bus. Now remember I said he's a charter school bus driver. He drives it at the weekends apparently. Now this is midweek, and they're like, well, you can't really take the bus out. He's like, don't worry, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Come on, we'll take out the school bus and we'll pretend we're just a normal bus. We'll get people on there and we'll just rob her. That was his great idea of finishing their fun night and ending up getting some money out of it. Okay. So they all agreed and they said, yeah, let's have some fun. That were the words that were used. All right. So they begin driving around the city, 6 of them on this bus. All right. Now, there's a man called Jyoti Singh, not related to the Singh brothers at all. He's about 35. And who they use is Mohammed, the young lad, to try and get people on the bus. He's young, he's quite innocent looking, and they're like, yeah, go on, you entice them on the bus, tell them, we're going the way they want to go. So talks to Jyoti, finds out where Jyoti is going. He's like, yeah, we're going that way, that's the way we're going. So Jyoti gets on the bus. Now when he gets on, he sees the bus driver, Mohammed, the young lad who got him on, and 4 other men on the bus. So he thinks it's a perfectly legal bus. He doesn't know they all know each other. So as soon as he sits down, they surround him. They tell him to hand over his phone and his money. Of course, he doesn't want to. They beat him. They get his phone. They get the money off him. I think it was about £18 in our money that they got off him. They pull the bus over and throw him off. Okay. So when he gets himself up, he spots 3 police officers. And he does approach them, tells them what happened, says, look, there's this bus that's going around. It's picking up people, but it's not a real bus. And when you get on, they're robbing you, they're beating you, look at me. And these 3 police officers were like, do you know what? It's not our jurisdiction. oh my God, I messed that up, didn't I? Jurisdiction. Why can't I say that right? It's not their area. Okay, and they don't help him. They tell him to go to the police station. He's like, well, by the time I get there, the bus is going to be gone. What's the point? So he doesn't know what to do, this man. So I believe he just goes home. All right. So now, when the 6 men, now don't forget they've robbed him. There's not enough people really around for them to rob, but it's not just robbing. They're starting to get bored of that. So they've done their drinking, they're smoking, they're eating, they've all done their little party where they live. They've gone on the bus, they've robbed him. They're still not happy. They're still a bit bored, and they're like, right, okay, I think we need to ramp this up a little bit now. We need to really step things up a little bit. So then they begin trying to convince women to get on the bus, young women. And for the most part, most of them were either ignoring that young Mohammed shouting out at them, or they were telling them to leave them alone. So no one was getting on the bus. Okay, so they're starting to get a little bit frustrated now. So it's now 9:30. Okay, Jyoti and Awindra. Okay, now remember, they were on the tuk-tuk. They had to get off. They're looking around for a bus to get home. And all of a sudden, this lad's shouting out, come on, we're going where you need to go. So Awindra goes over and he's like, has a chat, and he says to Jyoti, look, they'll take us back. They're going in our direction. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, no, they think they'll be fine, So when they get on the bus, of course, they see the driver. They see Mohammed, the young 17-year-old lad who's kind of encouraged them on the bus. They look around. There's 4 other men in the seats. They think, it's fine. It's a working bus. We'll get home. It's fine. They're both tired. It's quite late. Don't forget she's been at work all day, college all day, and then she's been at work. She's done. Awindra's done. They just want to get home. Okay? So they get on the bus and they sit down. All right? Now, Mohammed, the 17-year-old, he approached them asking for the bus fare, so they hand the bus fare over. And they just sit there talking, and as they do, they notice the bus driver turns the lights off. So Awindra then starts to look around as the bus has been driving for a couple of minutes, and he's like, this isn't going the way it was supposed to go. Like, the bus is going the wrong way. So he asked the driver what's going on, because I believe Awindra and Jyoti sat kind of near the front of the bus. So they asked the bus driver, like, where are you going? You're going the wrong way. So the bus driver doesn't answer them, but the other men start to walk towards them. And they kind of start goading them. Awindra and Jyoti start to realise these men aren't just passengers on the bus. They're together. They're all together. And these men start asking why he's out so late, why he's out together. They start making quite inappropriate comments towards Jyoti, which, of course, Awindra, isn't going to put up with that. He's not happy about that, how they're speaking to Jyoti. This is his friend. Why are they being inappropriate? So Awindra starts, he starts shouting at them. He's like, it's none of your business, what he's doing and where he's going. So the men approach the couple's seat and they punch him in the face. Well, one of them punches him in the face. And Awindra, he'd say, does fight back. He begins to fight a couple of them back, actually. But he doesn't stand a chance because there's 5 of them. And even though he's really trying, they begin to violently attack him. And then they get out an iron bar. Now, I've heard this iron bar called an iron rod. Now, a rod to me, in my mind, is quite thin. thin bit of metal. This isn't, I've seen it, it's not a thin bit of metal at all. It's quite a thick bit of metal. So to me, more describes an iron bar, not a rod. All right. So they get out this iron bar and they begin beating him around the head with that until he's beaten unconscious. Now, while this is going on, Jyoti, you know, she can't believe what's happening, but she's not a shot, you know, she's not a quiet girl just to sit back and allow this to happen. She jumps in, she tries to defend Awindra, you know, she's like, what are you doing? Well, you would hope that they'd just kind of only go for him and maybe just push her out the way. No. And start dragging her by her hair and beating her. Because how dare she? How dare she interrupt what they're doing? How dare she say anything to these men? So what they do, they gag Awindra, and they've actually beaten him so bad they've actually broken his leg at this point. Okay. Now, like I say, he's then knocked unconscious. And while beating Jyoti, they drag her to the back of the bus by her hair. Okay. And when they get her to the back of the bus, they continue to beat her. But then one by one, they rape her. Okay. One after another. And you might be like, well, that's 5 of them, there's the bus driver. But no, even the bus driver gets involved, whichever one of them it is, okay? The reason I'm not giving you specific names is because from various sources, the bus driver's name changes from it being Akshay to being Ram to being Mukesh. So I'm just going to say it was one of them, okay? And what happens is they swap. So the one who was driving the bus can come back to the back of the bus, and so he can rape Jyoti as well. Okay. So by the end of it, all 6 of them had raped this poor girl. Now, she was not, as I've told you, she fought. She genuinely did. To the point where she bit them. She actually bit a couple of them on their arms. Oh, they didn't like that. They didn't like that one bit. So they started biting her back viciously, all over her body, all over her face. She had many bite marks to her face, okay? Absolutely outraged them, but it really, really outraged Ram Singh. Now, remember, I've told you he was a very bad-tempered. He was more the leader of the group. Okay. So then and some of them have said it was just him. He claimed it was a couple of them that did it. But they then began to rape her vaginally and anally with the iron bar. Okay. And it said that when at one point the bar was taken out of her, they noticed that there was something coming out of her. So Ram Singh got his hand and put it inside her and began pulling out her intestines. Yeah. It said, oh, God. Yeah, it was pulling out her intestines. It said partly through her anus and partly through her vagina. Okay. During this time, of course, she's passing out. How would she not? And every time she would pass out, one of them would beat her around the head to wake her back up. They couldn't allow her to pass out. They wanted her to be awake for all of this. And this went on for about an hour as the bus just drove round the city in a circle. Went round twice. Okay. Now, when they were done, the men stripped Awindra and stripped what was left on Jyoti off. Robbed them of all their possessions. And I've heard that they did pull the bus over and throw them off. And I've also heard that they just threw them off from the bus while it was moving. Okay. Either one, it doesn't matter. But I've heard that I've heard both cases. Okay. Now, Awindra, bless him, he, obviously, they're both naked. Okay. And he staggers. Now, I've seen where they were thrown. Okay. And it's literally, if you imagine a main road, it's just sort of like a grass verge on the side. And when I say main road, it's not small. These are massive roads. And there's like a grass verge on the side of this road. Across the road, there's like a hotel, stuff like that. But on this side, it's quite quiet. It's just a grass verge. And he gets up and tries to stop some of the cars that were going past to try and get help. But because he's naked and he's covered in blood, a lot of cars wouldn't stop. Okay. So eventually a highway patrol car stopped. All right. And obviously called police and the ambulance and everything else. Now, I've heard that it was either the highway patrol or it was the police that went across to the hotel and got a sheet ripped in half, covered Jyoti and Awindra up, because don't forget, they're still naked on the floor. There were people around just looking at them. I mean, just horrific, absolutely horrific. Jyoti straight away was rushed into surgery. Okay. The internal injuries, they destroyed her uterus, her genitals. There was only a bit of her intestines left inside of her. I mean, they destroyed this girl. And that's her internal injuries, don't forget, outside. I have seen pictures of Jyoti. I mean, her eyes are just completely black. They've just broken this girl. Okay. But when she would come to, okay, she was able to tell the police exactly what had happened. Okay. And as well as Awindra was telling them, look, there's a bus going round. It's like a school bus. It's not a real bus. You know, they're picking people up and they're robbing. It's them. They did this to us. You know, so they were able to say exactly what had happened to them. But like I say, Jyoti was in a bad way. The doctors that were helping her just couldn't believe the brutality of what had been done to this girl. So very, very, very quickly a task force was put together, okay, to try and get these animals, these cretins. So where Jyoti and Awindra was found, they looked around, see if there was any cameras. Don't forget, it's a main road. All the cameras that were on the road and on the buildings opposite, none of them really faced down. Some of the cameras on the roads were broken. None of the buildings faced it, bar one, the hotel I mentioned. And that hotel's camera looked straight down onto that road where Jyoti and Awindra was thrown out. So they sat there and they had to watch hours upon hours and forward it to around that time when that bus would have appeared, it would have happened. Now they don't actually see where Jyoti and Awindra was thrown out and what bus that was, but what they do notice is a bus that goes round and appears again for a second time when there would have been no reason for a bus to have come back round that quickly. And they were like, that has to be the bus. That has to be our guys. Okay. Now, oh, God. And basically, like I say, they saw the bus appear twice in 40 minutes. That's how they spotted it. And with the Windrow's description, they knew this was the bus they were looking for. They knew it was. In the meantime, the men, but they'd gone back, cleaned the bus, got rid of all Jyoti and Windrow's stuff, cleaned it all up, made it look like nothing had happened, and went back home. Like, they'd had their fun. They'd had what they set out to do. They'd had their fun for the night, hadn't they? So, very, very, very quickly, the police, upon recognising this bus, found out who the driver was. Because don't forget, he drove for a charter school. So they found Ram Singh very quickly, really quickly. So, upon finding him, of course, they get his brother, they get Mohammed, and they get the other three. All very, very quickly. Within the first 36 hours, they had all six. It's just ridiculous how quickly they were caught. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if I've worded that right, but it was like that crime you did, and you were caught that quickly, says to me that you didn't care. You didn't care. You didn't think you'd get caught. You didn't think anything would be done to you. You didn't think you needed to cover your tracks. That's what that says to me. Okay. Now, when all six were rounded up, apparently the only one that showed any sort of remorse whatsoever was Pavan Gupta. Apparently he was the only one who showed any remorse. Not for long, though. He resorted back to saying, don't know what you're on about, just like the other five did, quite quickly. But at first, he was very remorseful, okay? So then we get to the 17th of December, 2012. This is the next day. Now, Jyoti was going through her fifth surgery at this point, and she's still critical, okay? Obviously, her parents are up with her. Her mum's talking to her. Her mum says that all she kept on saying is she wants to be alive to see them hang for what they did to her. Her mum says that every time she spoke about it, she'd start crying. She was so upset. Of course, she was in a lot of pain. Okay, she was just. Her poor parents. Like. It's just so sad. Like, I think because I've seen them in interviews, and they just seem the kindest couple ever, who just wanted this amazing life for their daughter, for all their children. They doted on this girl, and you can see just the heartbreak in them. It's awful. It genuinely is. Now, the 21st of December 2012, the public are losing their minds at this point, okay? Because this was released on the evening news, and just the fact that this has happened at this point, that Jyoti's name hadn't been released, okay? But her family wanted her name. Now, at this point, in India, I presume it could still be the case. Well, I know it's still the case, to be honest. The victims' names never released. I don't know whether it's for a reason for the family, I'm presuming. But the victims' name's not released. But Jyoti's parents wanted her name out there. They wanted people to know who she was, okay? They didn't want to hide. They had no reason to hide or be embarrassed or be ashamed. This had been done to their daughter, and they wanted people to know who she was, okay? Now, at this point, protests are starting to pop up all across, not just in Delhi, all around India. There's absolute uproar. Women are sick of this. because this wasn't a unheard of. I mean, it was particularly brutal and sadistic, but it wasn't unheard of with Jyoti being raped. India was the rape capital of the world. So that wasn't unusual. And the women and a lot of men, I will say that a lot of men came out onto the street as well, young, old, like I say, male, female, everyone was out on the street. Everyone had just had enough of this very old time thinking. It just had enough, and they wanted justice for Jyoti, but they wanted laws changing to protect women in India, in their villages, in their cities. They just had enough. Okay, so protests even went outside of the president of India's home. All right, so the police authorities had to get this resolved. They had to. Okay. So the president himself, he wanted Jyoti to get the very best care. He'd even made sure that the family had been given £25,000. I don't know what that was in there in Indian money, but it was about £25,000. Jyoti's dad had been promised a position within a government, to have a government job. They were trying to bend over backwards. I don't know if it's to keep the family quiet or just to say, we are dealing with this. They were saying, we've got daughters. We don't want this happening. There's a lot going on in India at this particular point. Now, the president wanted to fly Jyoti to a hospital in Singapore, okay, so she could get the best treatment money could buy. This is what he was saying. But the doctors at the hospital she was in were saying, she's not stable enough. She's not stable enough to go anywhere. And they considered it to be more of a political ploy, just to show, look, this is what we're doing for this young girl. And they were saying, look, she can't make that journey. She's not stable enough, but it was insisted upon. So on the 27th of December 2012, okay, so now we're 11 days after the attack, Jyoti was put on a flight to go to Singapore, but she went into cardiac arrest during that flight, okay. She had pneumonia, she had brain damage, and they were still trying to fly her to Singapore. Now, maybe once she got there, had she made the journey okay, maybe it might have been a good move for her. But they should have listened to the doctors who said she wasn't well enough to do this journey. And she never regained consciousness. And on the 29th of December 2012, 13 days after that brutal, sadistic, harrowing attack, Jyoti Singh died, aged 23. Just devastating. Of course, the protests once she died increased tenfold. It not only throughout India, but through surrounding countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh. It even made it into Europe, London, France. There was protests everywhere about, not just about what had been done to Jyoti, but what was being done to girls throughout India and throughout these countries that were protesting, just basically saying, look, we need stricter laws. We need more respect for our women in our countries. We can't have this. There was in India, there was a lot of girls wearing black like a black tape over their mouths, over their eyes. Their eyes were like a black scarf over their eyes. It was just, there was uproar over it. It was an absolute disgrace. It was a real stain on the country. Okay. But like I say, it wasn't it wasn't because just of this case, it was because this wasn't an unusual, it was unusual in its brutality, but the fact that Jyoti had been raped on that bus, that wasn't unusual. That wasn't unheard of. And that's frightening. Okay. So now so all 6, like I say, had been found and they were charged with on the 3rd of January 2013, they were charged with rape, murder, attempted murder, robbery, unnatural offences. I'm presuming that was because of the bar and because of her intestines, and destruction of evidence. Okay, they were all the charges brought forward. Okay. Now, the lawyer for the defence, oh my God, like I say, India's Daughter, that's the documentary I've watched. And this so-called man, I was gobsmacked. Now, the 6 men that we were talking about that had been charged, okay, those 6, now if you remember I mentioned the caste system to you, and the Dalits are the outcasts and are from the poorest sections of India and the poorest villages, okay? They have very, very patriarchal, traditional views, okay? I don't like the fact that it's called traditional, because I think tradition can be a positive thing in society. This isn't tradition. This is something else, okay? And this, so their idea of women, the 6 perpetrators, okay, I'll get you their names again now. Those 6, sorry, let me get their names for you now. Where have I put their names? Sorry, bear with me. There they are, sorry. Okay, those 6, okay, especially Mukesh Singh. I remember he's Ram Singh's brother. He was battered when he first got into the prison because it had been found out what he had done. So he got put into solitary for his own protection. He did. Now, his interview, now if you remember at the beginning when I said India's Daughter had been banned in India, banned from being shown there, because within that documentary there was interviews done, and one of them was with Mukesh, okay, and they reckon that's why it was banned. Now, like I said, I don't think that was the reason, but there was an interview done with him, and oh my God, the things this man said. He basically said that it was Jyoti's own fault that what happened. And basically, if a woman's been raped, she should just lie there and take it. She shouldn't have opened her mouth. She shouldn't have fought back. And we would have just let her go. He goes, but, you know, she brought that on herself. He says, but now with all of this happening, you know, people are just going to kill the girls they rape now. They're just going to kill them because, you know, we let her go and look what's happened. So she hasn't done women any favours, because now men are just going to be like, well, I can't let her go. I'm going to kill her instead. He basically blamed her. He blamed her because she was out at 9:30 at night and she wasn't with her husband. It was her fault. The lawyer, now, we can go on the caste system. We can say it's because the group of men were from a very, I don't know how to word it without it being really offensive, but let's just say they were from a community where this belief was okay. Let's just say that. Their lawyer is a supposed educated man who would have been around. He wouldn't have just been from a very little village and just only around those certain group of people. He was out there. He was a lawyer. He would have been in the presence of men and women, all from everywhere. Do you want to know what he said? Again, he said the person whose fault it is in a rape is the girls. It's not the boys. It's the girls' fault. The girl should never be out. She shouldn't have been out. Why was she out without a boyfriend or a husband? Why was she out at that time of night? I couldn't believe what I was listening to. And he fully believed what I said. He fully believed it. Tried to liken it to a flower. Women are flowers. And, if they're looked after, then they're beautiful. But if they're down in the gutter, who bothers with them? Men are the thorns. So men are there to protect. That was the wording he was using. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. And they're the lawyers of these men. So these men weren't even they still probably wouldn't have thought they did anything wrong because they've got their own lawyer backing them up. Like, yeah, it was her fault. She never should have been out. And more to the point, she never should have fought back, because if she hadn't fought back, we wouldn't have had to have pulled her intestines out. I mean, come on. Oh, God. So on the 28th of January 2013, Mohammed was tried as a juvenile, okay, because he was 17 years old. Now, Jyoti's parents did try to stop this and have him tried as an adult, but there was a law in place at the time, so he was tried as a juvenile. And on the 31st of August 2013, he was sentenced to 3 years. 3 years. That's all he got. Apparently, he was very involved as well. He wasn't a bystander in this. He was really involved. Really involved. Don't forget, it was him that got them on the bus. He was actually released in 2015, given a new ID. I mean, his family did disown him. He wasn't welcome back to his own family, but he was given a new ID, sent off to another part of India, and he's now living his best life. Been given a job and everything else. He's good. And the people he works with would never know. Now, don't forget, this crime was known throughout India, but his head was constantly covered. So they'd have never known. No, he could be working next to so many women who probably think he's a great lad. And they'll never know. On the 11th of March 2013, Ram Singh, the ringleader, the absolute dregs of the earth, he didn't stick around to see what was going to happen. Okay, well, we're told he didn't, because on the 11th of March 2013, Ram Singh was found hung in his cell. You might be like, oh, suicide. Well, he shared his cell with 3 other men. So, we don't know. We don't know. It was put down as suicide, but we don't know. We don't actually know what happened with Ram Singh. And put it this way, they didn't spend any resources investigating it. Let's just say that, okay? Now, on the 10th of September 2013, the other 4 men, okay, which was Akshay Thakur, Pawan Gupta, Vinay Sharma, and Mukesh Singh, were all found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging, okay? And the court, it was said, did applaud at the time. Jyoti's dad had said, look, he looked at them when the sentence was handed down, and he said he saw the fear of death in their eyes. Apparently, they all started shouting, like, help us, brothers, help us, brothers. Don't forget, they're from this patriarchal mindset. So they can't believe they're going to be sentenced to death for a woman. Because of a woman. Why? Why are you bothered, brothers? Well, why are we being sentenced? Because of a mere woman. That's what they believed. But there was no sympathy for them in the courtroom at all. I don't know about their own lawyers. Now, Mukesh, like I say, he was the one who'd done the interview for India's daughter while he was on death row. While they were putting their appeals through, and there was quite a few appeals all the way to the Supreme Court. I think not only given the viciousness of their crime, but also given the uproar of the country, they were never, ever going to get anything other than death. I wouldn't have thought so, okay? So all their appeals, like I say, were rejected, and on the 20th of March 2020, they were all hung at dawn, should I say. It was 5:30 in the morning. They were given like their last meal, given a new outfit, and all four, there was actually a platform for four of them, the four to be hung at the same time. But there are rumours that someone had messed with the rope, apparently, just to make it as painful as possible. And it actually took 30 minutes for all four to be declared as deceased. So it was a long death for at least a couple of them. It's a shame. Now, rape at that time in India wasn't classed as a capital crime. It is now, thanks to Jyoti's family. And Jyoti's family also, along with an entrepreneur, like a businessman, began a trust for victims of rape. And Jyoti's dad did say, you know, we can't thank enough the people of India who supported us during that time. And we want to be able to support, you know, victims of rape too. You know, they just so dignified our parents, right, just from beginning to end. No ranting, no raving, no screaming, no hysterics, just, which they'd have been entitled to do all of the above for years, forever. But they were just so dignified throughout the whole thing. Everything I've ever seen of them. Now, I did watch another documentary for 10 years on. So it was on it was in 2022. It was an interview with her mum, Asha, again. And she says the pain is eternal, but 10 years have passed and we couldn't stop living, okay? We go about our daily lives, but the pain is not going away soon. Just so sad. It genuinely is. Now, Jyoti would have been 36 this year. And after the public outcry in India, changes were made by the Indian government. There was more CCTV put into the cities and I don't think the villages, but the cities, more street lights. There's safety marshals put on some buses, not many. In fact, women are told that actually, if you don't want anything bad to happen, don't get on these other buses. Not let's stop the men from doing it, but as women, don't get on these buses. Only go on the ones where they've got safety marshals. Just do that. Okay. They've got 6 fast-track courts that have been brought into place for rape cases. But it says that young women still live in fear over their safety. One was saying that groping is the new good afternoon in the metro. That was from a college student, says that. This is very up to date. This is up to now. There are women's only coaches now. So basically saying men will be men, so you have to change how you travel. Okay. In 2021, there was 31,000 rape cases registered in India. Women say the authorities are still very slow to act. The 2021 figure was a 13% increase from 2020. No, they're saying is that because of the pandemic, but it's an increase, and it was up again in 2024 by 8%. So it wasn't because of the pandemic. And on the 8th of August 2024 in Kolkata, West Bengal, India, there is a victim. I don't know her name because, as we know, in the majority of cases, the victim's name isn't released. But there was a victim, age 31, who's a postgraduate trainee doctor, was raped and murdered and found the next day on the 9th of August 2024 in a seminar room on the college campus. So what would be the excuse now? She wasn't at the cinema. She wasn't on the streets at 9:30 with a man, because that was their excuse, wasn't it? This girl was in a seminar room on her college campus. 33-year-old Sanjay Roy was sentenced to life imprisonment. And Sanjay Roy, he worked for the Kolkata police. That was the man who did it. And he'd been working and patrolling that college campus and must have just saw his chance. So that was as of 2024, okay? So although they're implementing changes, I think until the mentality changes, I don't know if the crime statistics are really going to go down. Rape statistics, should I say. It's just, I've watched so much on this case that I'll probably come away from this and be like, what about this? But I feel like I've mentioned everything that I can on this case, and all I can say is what an absolute shame for this young girl who just went to the cinema, and her parents. It said her brother, when Mohammed, the 17-year-old juvenile, was only sentenced to 3 years, it was said that her brother actually tried to jump over and get him, but he was held back. He was that disgusted. Oh, sorry, Jyoti's family as well have also got the law changed. So where, as we said, the juvenile law that was brought in, because he was only 17, he couldn't be charged as an adult. That's now been brought back to 16. Okay, so Jyoti's family have also brought that in. Okay, they've been responsible for a lot of changes that have been brought in. But I fear, given the fact of this victim in 2024, there's still a lot of changes that have to be brought in. The Western world, we've got just as many, I don't mean to sound like I'm saying, oh, it's so great here. I'm not meaning to say that at all. I'm just more, it's what I heard from the lawyer, I think, was what blew my brain. It was that mentality was crazy. It was crazy to me. And the fact that she was being blamed, that's what blew my head. So that was India's daughter, the harrowing Jyoti Singh story. Just so sad. So sad. But thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I know it's been a long one. But thank you so much. I am here on a Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Obviously, pre-recordeds go up on the weekend. But I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd appreciate that too. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care. Oh, Harrowing.